I just want to do a quick recap in case there's any kind of confusion with that one. Like whenever we're looking at a range like this, like we have 28,913. So we see the hourly level. If that hourly level had stopped that move, we would always be looking for a 15. So like one of the first things we do in this, in any time any asset is moving up or down, whether it's Bitcoin, Forex, doesn't matter. And one of the first things we do is we identify always RA standards, right? Like what's the bottom move? What's the knife catch? What's the greediest level? And we kind of define that range. So if we are working inside of this, and I want you to see that Ahivet has 913 on his screen, which is blue, which is our hourly. The next level down that it would have to go to would be 837, which is the 15. It's the next time frame. And then there's a very important reason why I always talked about these are the time frames we use, the exact ones that Ahivet has on his screen, which is daily 4-1, 15, 5, 3, 1. And there's a reason, and we're not going to get into the reason why. It's a whole mathematical thing, but these time frames will always be your guiding light. So whenever anybody adds any time frames outside of this, I'm always very adamant to say, like, do not use that because it'll just break the whole entire flow. And so like if you have only these time frames on your chart, that's the first thing we have to mention, because I don't want to see somebody having, say, you know, level X on their screen, and then, you know, it's like a half an hour level, and they would go from the 1 hour to the half an hour level, and then they would just miss a trade because it's just, that doesn't line up. It doesn't make sense. It's confusing. You know what I mean? Like it's not there, right? So that's the first thing. So whenever we see and we're making these decisions, we have to be extremely mindful that he has on his chart 913, which is an hourly, had that, and he's also defined 837, which is the 15. So he's defined his combo range. He's picked all the levels that it could go to. In the event that it only targeted 913, that's perfect. We know to go for the 15-minute hold level when it establishes it. And if it establishes a 15-minute hold level that is also untested, now it can get into a reverse trail, but then you're looking also into more like, okay, it reversed a 15, has a combo 5. So now are we creating a 5-minute range trend? Because now we're getting into another theory we haven't talked about. But imagine that you have a 15-minute level. It's a reverse level. You have a 5-minute trail. Then you're going to have a 5-minute interior trend. And the interior trend breaks to go back to that reverse level. So now we're opening up even a newer can of worms here with that kind of saying, which we're not going to focus on today. But just be mindful that if you had like a 15-minute level, all of a sudden it made a 5-minute level. There was a 15-minute reverse. You started trailing and laddering 5-minute levels. You're going to create a 5-minute interior trend. That interior trend represents the holding of that time frame until a bigger time frame is developed. Or if you lose that interior trend, you're going to go target that reverse level because that reverse level propagated the 5-minute levels. The 5-minute levels laddered, and this is where interior trends are used or not used in theorem. So people might be able to just like adapt this instantly and move right through it. But if you have a reverse level and then you propagate to the next time frame, so let's say the 15-minute is a reverse here, you have 5-minute levels holding you up. You need to make an interior trend off that 5-minute trail. And when that breaks, realize you are going to that 15 reverse to hold the entirety of the move. So there's kind of a whole queue you get into there. But despite that, again, that sentence should allow people to understand that. If we'll go into it in a greater depth in a future lesson, but that should really resonate pretty clearly anyways for those who get it. And then so he has his 15-minute level on his chart. We have the hourly. Deep dives to the 15. It's still attacking that range. In order for that range to hold, it now has to hold a 5-minute level, which is why Ahivet has a 5-minute on his screen. So that's just where I wanted to make sure we had clarity with the 5-minute levels. It's creating a 5-minute trail. You now should also be making your 5-minute trail also should have an interior to it as well. So if you are now saying you went for the 15, the 5 has to hold, I want you guys and girls getting into the habit of now making interior ranges. So draw your interior range on the 5 where it tests back.
So when it tests back here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the same base and reach point whether you have it. Yeah, you had it perfect. Yep. Base
Right
there,
here.
reach there. That's important. So when you have the 15, you always one time frame plus one minus one for interior trends to show you whether that range is going to hold or break. Now, I'm not saying that the 5-minute range, interior range trend here is going to be the definitive spot that breaks the hourly, but this gives you where the starting of where do I draw perfect range trends? Because to draw a perfect range trend is a whole nother thing that we haven't gotten into yet, but we couldn't until this moment because you have to understand the 15-minute goes down from the hourly, the combo hits the 15, goes to the 5 bounces. That time frame that needs to hold is also your range trend, which is why on the right side of the screen, you're seeing it hit perfectly. So just to talk about that for a few minutes, those interior range trends are created from having the right accuracy, the 15-minute to the 5-minute hold, etc. That's where those are created. So, okay, go ahead, Ahivet, keep going. But I just wanted to get that in there before we moved on. So not only that everybody understands why the 15 to the 5, but also to add the context that this is how we draw accurate and perfect range trends.
Yeah. No, that's a nice little piece there. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's a killer tip that'll give you and you can see it on the right side where it hits that. Then you'll see what happens here as you hit play too.
Can I actually ask a question real quick about that?
Sure.
So like that 5-minute trail is associated with that 15 that's inside the hourly until you would probably create like a new 15 that would represent the succession of that hourly, right? Like it's like to hold the hourly, you want to create a 15 and hold that. The same way that to hold the 15, you're creating that 5-minute trail, right?
Okay, so repeat that question again for me. I understand it. I just need to know a little bit more context on it.
Well, like because one of the things I was wondering is like if you're attacking this hourly level, that's the first thing we tested.
Yeah.
So you're looking to make a 15, but then it breaks, goes down deeper into the hourly to test the 15. So my kind of thoughts were like, are we looking for that 5 because we're testing the 15? Or are we still looking for a 15 because we're inside the hourly? Like it's the bigger container. But
So
it kind of makes sense that it happens like inside the container. It's like
it makes sense. So what's going to happen here? So I did mention something that I quickly skimmed over. I was hoping that we could just skim over it, but you kind of asked the right question. But anyways, we'll get into it right now real quick. So this range trend, when it tests to hold, so like where IHVET has it testing to hold, you now have to go back and say like what time frame did it create? So now what you need to do with that is you need to go and find the highest time frame, because when that trend holds, you have to adapt it. Now this is something else, a theory that we haven't talked about, but it's kind of falls under range adaptation. So what you need to do now, IHVET, so once you have your 5-minute range trend, it is tested, confirmed, and held in the moment right now. So now you need to go back up to your 4-hour and you need to see if this has created what time frames. Okay, so it's not a 4-hour. So let's just move on. Let's go to the hourly. There's no blue candles. Okay, there's no blue candles here either. The base point is the only thing I'm looking at to start. We go to the 15. Okay, so you have the 15 reach, you have the hourly reach. You need to adjust this now to that time frame here on the 15, because it's kind of going back to where you have, you need to test this to the 15, and this is going to become a 15-minute range trend now that will adapt. So you have to kind of go +1, -1 in this scenario where you've seen that, okay, look, we've got this 5-minute range trend. The 15-minute is what it tested. That's kind of your +1, -1. That's where you need to start setting your next trend from here. And you'll see that this is going to be a 15-minute trend as time goes on. So you could just go on the 15-minute here, hit play, and you'll see where you need to adapt this trend. Yeah, oh, it's already adapted. There you go. Adapt it to there. And then you have your 15-minute range trend. So now you could just hit play the whole way through, and I bet you this thing respects like perfectly. Now there's the 15. There it is again. There it is again. There it is again.
Jesus.
So this is how you do range trends properly, because this was propagated from the 15. There it is again. There it is again. And you see how it gets lost and then it just sinks down and through it. And then it's back testing it. You see how perfect the range trend is now. So really one of the purposes, and then obviously something else holds it up and it goes to a bigger part of the move, right? So one of the purposes to having these interior range trends is it's kind of like +1, -1 theory, but you also have trends and interior trends. So your 5-minute gives you your interior trend that you need to first have, right? So you have your 5-minute range trend, and when it tests, you need to start going to the other time frames to see what exactly is happening. In this one, you're going to want to see if there's a 15-minute. You could start with a 4. There was no 4. There was an hourly and there was a 15. So now you can go to the 15 to see if that holds. You could also step up and go to the hourly to see if it's there as well. But the first thing you need to do is see the 15. So the only thing you could possibly do with this is you could adjust it to an hourly, but that might be the same as the 15. Yeah, it's basically, it's not even the same as the 15. You'd have to actually go for the hourly, test the 15, and then you'd have to do the same process on the hourly. You end up with the same exact trend almost. So, but you can see where that range trend on the 5-minute, you can see where, okay, we had a range trend off that 5-minute level. It's all held up by the 15-minute below. Once that trend confirms to test, now you have to make a 15-minute range trend because you hit a 15-minute level. Had that 15-minute level not hit, you want to do the same thing with the hourly. And had you bounce that hourly, you're looking at the 15-minute level, right? So imagine 913 is the only thing that's hit. Hits 913, moves up, holds a 15-minute level, right? You have a 15-minute range trend. When that holds, you have to go back up to the hourly time frame, the time frame you tested, to go and say, okay, where's this hourly range trend? And that's why that 15-minute is so perfectly accurate. And we didn't do anything else other than use that 15 because we hit a 15-minute level below. So we needed a 15-minute range trend.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that answers your question, Dak, but it's part
totally
of
does.
it's along the lines of what you're asking.
Yeah, it's like because it has to build up. Like it's the whole point of its existence is to build up into those.
Imagine having a 1 hour level on the bottom, 913, and then using a 4 hour range trend. Like what? Wouldn't the 4 hour just break the one completely? Because then if you lose a 4 hour range trend, then you have to go down to a 1 hour hold level. So how could that be? Right? Because it can't, because you've already tested the 1 hour level. So it would just skip right over 913. And that's sometimes what happens when you get higher time frame range trends is you have something where, oh, it tested an hourly level like 913 and it held so long that it created a 4 hour range trend off of a daily level +1 -1, just supersedes all of what it back tested, has a 4 hour level. And then if you lose a 4 hour and you're going +1 -1, your next untested hold level is not going to be 913. It's just going to skip through the entire range. But if you did that on an hourly, that's why you need that hourly time frame. Because if too much time passes, you're just going to skip the whole range. Because you already have a 4 hour level. You lose that +1 -1, you have to go back down. Unless 913 happened to be an origin, but we know in this case it's not. So if it was an origin, fine. You could create a 4 hour range trend, go back test the origin of 913, or even 937, 837 here, 15-minute. But we know those aren't origins. We know those are just hold levels from the previous range. So the only way that could be possible is you create a 4 hour range trend, 913 is hit, 913 would be an origin, you lose the range trend, the origin holds again, eventually you're going to make a daily hold level. So it kind of just like completes the circle. Like it just fills in all the blanks of like why and what trends to use and when and where. Because if you had a 4 hour level, it was a 1 hour hold, eventually you're going to make a daily hold level anyways, because in order to make that 4 hour range trend, you're going to need daily hold levels because you're going to have two pullbacks and you're going to end up having a daily hold level. So then you're going to lose a trend to go back to the daily hold that you created to create that trend. But without that, you would just sink right through anyways. So you see what I mean about the +1 -1 really fills in the gaps. It just goes full circle when you're using +1 -1.
Yeah, it's all the context.
Yeah, it just goes full circle. And that like range trends and where and why they exist are you test at a 15, let's go make a 5, make a 5-minute range trend. Oh, perfect. That 5-minute range trend exists. It gets tested once. Great. Go make a 15-minute range trend now. 15-minute level gets hit. You have a 15-minute range trend. At least you have clarity in that move. You're now looking to go test a 5-minute level. But if that was a 4 hour range trend, how could you go down and test this 837 again? You couldn't. It's not even the 1 hour level. And 913, well, I guess technically 913 is reversed, but not really because it's not a reverse level because that actually tested first. So if 913 never got hit, you created a 4 hour range trend, you could reverse 913 as a reverse level to create an even bigger trend from 837 daily. Like you could do something like that, but that's not the case here because we tested 913 perfectly. So you see how it kind of just all ties together and comes through full circle with talking about +1 -1 and where these levels can exist, because this 5-minute range trend can't even exist unless 837 is the level it gets hit, and it is. And so we have a 5-minute level. The 5-minute level holds it. It makes a 5-minute trend, and then you have a 15-minute range after the 5-minute confirms, which is exactly what you need to do. You test an hourly, you need to make an hourly range trend. You test a 4 hour, you need to make a 4 hour range trend, and that's how you get there. So whatever level you test, you then go +1 -1 down. So let's pretend we hit a 4 hour level. You have to go hold a 1 hour. And when that 1 hour creates, you have to then make a range trend on the hourly. And when that range trend tests and it creates a range trend and then it tests it, then you make it a 4 hour if you can. Or the moment it does, then you make it a 4 hour. Then you have your perfect level. You tested the 4, you have your perfect range trend. And that's how you get to it. You get to it with +1 -1. Sorry to hijack you, Yvette, but I thought that was pretty important to kind of go through.
That was gold dust. So good.
Does everybody like understand that, like why +1 -1 is so like prolific and how that creates? Like, does everyone kind of follow this?
I do.
I can only speak for myself.
Could I try and like phrase it in a really like short way, like a in a way,
Sure.
to see that
Absolutely.
I understand it. Is it like, it's kind of like, so like you're going to test a level and test a time frame, and then from there you're building a range, but you're decycling the move as you're developing it. So you're going down in time frames, but then whilst you're going down in time frames and testing the lower time frames to decycle the range, you're also building new higher time frames. So you're checking whether those are sort of setting the range up in a different time frame, kind of converting it to if it can hold on those higher time frames, for it then to see if it can decycle those or not and break the range, or if it can continue to build those higher time frames and then break up.
Yeah, that would be a way of putting it for sure. Yeah. You're using the term decycling, which would, like, yes, it makes sense in terms of English language, but not as we use the term decycling, but that's fine because I completely understand what you mean when you say that. But it wouldn't technically be decycling on the charts. But yes, that is correct. It would be almost like an easier way to say it would be whatever time frame you tested, you have to go and create a trend by retesting the plus one minus one to that. So whatever your time frame, like the simplest way to say it would be whatever time frame you test, you have to create a range trend one time frame lower by holding that one time frame lower. See what I mean? Like that would be like the easiest way to say it. And then also the next, like that would be step one, would be whatever time frame you test, go make sure you test one time frame below it and hold that. That creates your range trend. When that range trend tests, so that's step one. Step two would be once that range trend is tested, you can now go look for the original time frame and make a range trend off that. And kind of just by sense of logic too, because imagine you had a 1 minute range trend and you tested it the first time and you tested it again. Well, by the time it takes you to test it for like you create it and then test it, I should say. I shouldn't say test it and test it again. I should say you create the range trend and then test it. So the third touch of that, the base point being the first, the reach point being the second, the first test of that trend, that range trend being the third. So the first time you test that range trend, you go back to the time frame that you just go back up a time frame. But then that should make sense because if you have a 1 minute range trend and it's taken time to get there, well, then technically enough time would have passed that you would have a 3 minute range trend. And if a 3 minute level held you up, then that's what it would need to do. If a 5 minute level held you up, you used the wrong range trend. You used a 1 minute when you should have used a 3 minute. So you use a 3 minute range trend. When that range trend tests, then you make your 5 minute range trend. And then you've got your 5 minute level tested with the 5 minute level range trend. If you were to go above that to the 15, so if you were to go to above a time frame, now all of a sudden you can't use the 5 minute that you tested to hold the move. You're going to gap down to the next 5 minute untested. You see what I mean?
Mm.
So like right now we tested 837. If we were to use a 1 hour range trend, how could you say, let's go test the next 15 minute level? It would be in the next range. You'd lose the whole entire range. So actually the range trend that you have is controlling the whole move. You see what I mean? So that's what happens when you test a certain level. Like if you were to test a daily and you make a weekly range trend, because so many times the daily tested, when you lose that weekly range trend, you're going to look for the next daily, which is under the beginning of that whole entire thing. You see what I mean? Like it's not the level it tested, it's the next range. So that's when you sometimes lose a range too. But again, it should just make sense completely, like full circle, because plus one, minus one, forget everything we talked about. If you have a daily level, you need to stop it with a 4. If you just broke a weekly trend, how can you use the 4 hour level that was there? No, you have to use a daily. And the daily's way past that 4 because you already tested the daily. See what I mean? So that's when you get those skip overs or those big dumps or those big pumps. And now think of that also, take that one step further, i.e. that go to like a weekly chart or go to a daily chart for me, for example, and just go to the very bottom of this move or even the top here. That's top or bottom. It doesn't matter. That's perfect right there. Imagine you sit there in a range testing something at the very top of this move, right? Like go back a little bit. Yeah, right there. Yeah. Imagine you keep testing this over and over and over and people say, oh, distribution. Well, it's not that it's distribution. Yes, it like if you want to sum it up into an easy saying, this is distribution. But imagine now you've created a weekly, right? You've created weekly hold levels on the bottom of this chart. So if you go to the weekly chart here, you've already created weekly levels. So like, how do you even, like, what can you even back target here if you've created a weekly hold level? You can't start using 4 hours and 1 hour. You've stayed there so long at the top that you've created weekly levels. Now you need dailies to hold you, right? So like, and then it even goes one step further. And the daily is what held us down in this move. So like, look at all this time that has passed by on the daily. It has created these weekly levels. And then look, see his line here at 368. Well, that's a level that held us because it's the daily. Of course, it has to be. So it just completes like a full circle effect that shows you exactly how distribution happens, exactly how accumulation happens, exactly how to create range trends, what time frames need to be done, right? Because now you need to see that, like, well, of course, it's the daily level that held it down. What else could have held it down? Well, and that the only reason it is the daily level is because it sat up top for so long that it created a weekly level. So when you sit in these spots for too long, that's what happens. Now go back to your current chart, like a 5 minute or 15, that's fine. Yeah. And like, imagine it just sits here and creates accumulation. You just bounced off a 15-minute level. Imagine it sits here for so long that you start creating daily levels, for example, and a 4-hour range trend. Well, like, of course, now you have to use, if you create a daily, you have to use a 4-hour level to hold you up. Do you even have a 4-hour level on your chart in the current range? No. Right? So you can see where that fills in that gap of why does how does distribution exist? Like, what is the exact reason? What is the exact science behind distribution and accumulation? What is the exact purpose of failing a move? What is the exact moment you lose it? Well, that's what it looks like. But again, it just completes like this full circle explanation of, look, here's how you draw range trends. Here's the time frames they exist on. Here's how they can get created. And here's what happens when you lose a certain time frame. Because now I think if you were to go and try to find like a 4-hour, I don't even think you have a 4-hour. I think your range trend is still a 15-minute here. Yeah. But your replay tool is still on. So I don't know, because I haven't really looked at this move. But it's a pretty important thing to go through. You might actually have I think you have a daily trend now, actually. So you have a daily trend off of this 15-minute dump. So like
you do eventually, not in this moment here.
Yeah, eventually, like if you were to take the replayer tool off, you'll see it. So now it's like 4-hour levels are the it. So like I'm pretty sure that if you were to go to your daily charts and then just switch it over to a 4, you probably see 4-hour hold levels working now all of a sudden.
Yep.
Now, since I'm looking at my chart right now, and that's exactly it. There's a 4-hour hold level. It just got hit. It's perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
that's exactly what I was.
That's full circle of when you go and knife catch something. That's your full circle. There's not a piece missing in that equation, because that explains to you every piece. If you start from no levels on your chart except for 837, if you deleted every level on your screen, you go to the moment this knife catch happens, that shows you what I just explained, the full circle part of this move for range trends and knife catches and how you use them without a missing piece. So that's like a complete piece of the science right there.
Yeah, it is. It's really sick. I've been using this all week, and it's just been like the improvement is unreal. How fast it helped me.
Mm-hmm. But you could also probably agree that without getting this far into the science, learning +1, -1 range trends, all this stuff at such a deep level, this would just go over your head and you'd be like, oh, I didn't like, there's a +1, -1. What do you mean? Like, you have to kind of get people to a certain point. You see what I mean? But this is now a complete circle that we've just created. The first one we've ever created in mentorship for the first topic. It just goes so deep into so many hard theories that take so long to learn that you have to break it down like this. But you can see why, because it would be almost impossible to learn all of this before this moment.